What if everything you've ever worked for, every dollar in your bank account, turned out to be just an illusion? What if those pieces of paper and digits on a screen have more control over your life than you do? These questions might sound outrageous, but think about it. We spend our days chasing money, worrying about it, trading our time and even our principles for it. Yet money isn't a law of nature. It's a story, an idea we all agree to believe in. In fact, as historian Yuval Noah Harari points out, money isn't a tangible reality like gold or grain. Money is simply trust, a shared fiction we all participate in. Look around. Entire cities rise and fall on the flow of money. Relationships thrive or break under its strain, and people make life and death decisions because of it. Do we control money, or does money control us? To answer that, we need to understand where this strange idea came from and how it grew into a force that quietly rules the world. From ancient temples and carved stones to secret bank meetings and digital currencies, the history of money is entirely as mysterious as it is revealing. And it just might change how you see reality itself. So let's embark on a journey through time and through our own minds. Keep an open mind, because the story of money is full of paradoxes and hidden truths. By the end, you might wonder whether money is humanity's greatest invention or its most dangerous illusion. Let's start at the beginning. How did money even originate? The popular story in Econ 101 is that money evolved to fix the problems of barter. You know, cavemen sick of trading fish for bananas, so someone minted coins to make life easier. But history tells a more intriguing tale. There's actually little evidence that societies were stuck in pure barter before money. Instead, anthropologists and historians like David Graeber argue that early economies ran on credit and trust within communities. In ancient Mesopotamia, after farming began, people deposited grain in temple storehouses and got clay table receipts in return. Those clay receipts could be traded for other goods or used to pay taxes, essentially early money backed by grain. Remarkably, the earliest known writing isn't poetry or law. It's accounting records on these clay tablets. In other words, the first scribes were more concerned with tracking bushels of barley than writing epic sagas. So money, in a sense, began as a memory, a ledger of who owed what to whom. It was an abstraction of value, not the shiny gold coins we imagine. In Sumeria, silver and barley were used as standard units of account even before coins. Money was a technology of the imagination from the start, a way to quantify trust and obligation. Coinage did eventually emerge, and it's an epic story in itself. The first known coins appear around the 7th century BCE in two places far apart, China and Lydia, in what is now Turkey. In China, early coins weren't round. They were tiny bronze tools like knives and spades used as tokens. In Lydia, King Alyattes, father of the famous Croesus, minted electrum coins stamped with a lion around 600 BCE, arguably the world's first true coin money. These Lydian coins, made of a gold-silver mix, spread quickly because they simplified trade. A Greek historian noted how Lydia's neighbor, the Persians, adopted coinage and suddenly, as rich as Croesus, became a saying. But even these early coins had a symbolic aspect. A Lydian status value came partly from its metal, but also from the stamp of the king's authority. Meanwhile, other cultures used money that had no intrinsic value at all. On the Micronesian island of Yap, people used enormous stone discs called rice stones as money. These carved limestones could be 12 feet across and weigh 4 tons. They were nearly impossible to move, and in fact they often weren't moved when ownership changed. Villagers kept an oral ledger of who owned which stone, effectively a communal record much like a blockchain. In one famous case, a rice stone being transported on a canoe fell into the ocean and sank, but everyone agreed the stone was still there underwater, so it continued to count as money and was traded accordingly. You heard that right. An invisible, unreachable stone still functioned as currency because people trusted the story of its value. It's a vivid reminder, money's value is whatever we all believe it is, no more, no less. Across cultures, almost anything scarce or trusted has served as money. Shells, salt, cattle, cocoa beans. The word salary even comes from sal, salt, often said to be from Roman soldiers getting allowances to buy salt. They weren't literally paid in salt, but salt was so crucial that it became a metaphor for wages. The form doesn't matter as long as everyone agrees. In 17th century French Canada, they ran out of coins and used playing cards as cash, writing denominations on them to pay soldiers. During World War II, prisoners in POW camps used cigarettes as currency, pricing all goods in smokes. Even non-smokers accepted them, confident others would too. The pattern is clear. Money is a social contract. Whether it's a giant stone, a pack of Marlboros, or a digital bit, money works only because people trust that others will honor its value. If money began as a humble accounting tool, it didn't stay humble for long. Rulers and conquerors quickly discovered that money is power, perhaps the greatest power there is. Controlling the currency became a way to control people. How? Imagine you're an ancient king trying to raise an army. You could pay your soldiers in gold or loot, but where do they spend it? Far easier is to mint your own coins with your face on them, pay soldiers with those coins, then demand that everyone in your realm pay taxes using those same coins. Now citizens have to obtain the king's currency to pay their taxes, which means they'll sell goods or labor to soldiers or officials to get coins. The soldiers get supplies, the people get coins to pay taxes, and the king establishes a closed loop of currency and control. This was essentially what happened in economies from ancient Athens to imperial China. Historians identify the Axial Age as a period when coinage spread alongside large empires and wars. Coin money greased the gears of commerce and conquest. Let's take a closer look at how an empire could run on coins. Anthropologist David Graeber describes a kind of money militarism in steps. Conquest. The empire conquers a region and demands tribute. Often war captives are taken as slaves. Resource extraction. Slaves or subjects are put to work in mines to extract gold or silver, raw material for coins. That is minting currency. The metal is minted into standardized coins stamped with the ruler's seal. Paying troops. Soldiers are paid in these coins for their service, as are mercenaries, weapon suppliers, shipbuilders, etc. Taxation. The conquered populace is required to pay taxes only in the emperor's coins. This forces them into the monetary economy. They must obtain coins by selling goods or labor to those who have them, often back to the soldiers. And provisioning and expansion. The army spends coins to get food, equipment and lodging from the locals, which keeps the war machine fed and builds loyalty. And then the army moves on to conquer the next territory, armed and funded by this coin system. This cycle made money a tool of domination as much as a medium of exchange. The boundaries of an empire often corresponded to where its coins were accepted as legal tender. Coins spread the influence of the state. In fact, Athens became the first fully monetized state this way. And note, many of these coins had face values higher than their metal content. In Rome, copper coins were worth far more than the copper itself. They were essentially fiat currency. Their value came from the imperial stamp, not the metal. Rulers weren't naive about the power of fiat money. Take Sparta. They deliberately issued iron coins that were brittle and useless for anything except currency. They quenched the red-hot iron in vinegar so it would shatter if you tried to work it into tools. Why? To ensure the money's value only came from state decree, not the metal. These worthless iron discs couldn't be stolen by invaders for melt value, nor easily used outside Sparta, a clever way to keep wealth controlled internally. The Spartan kings understood money is a token of authority. Throughout history, whoever controls the money supply holds the reins of power. As one account put it, whoever controlled the issue of money was able to organize society to transfer wealth from ordinary people who created the wealth to themselves. Rulers could debase coins, mix in cheaper metal, or alter face values at will, effectively taxing people by stealth inflation. This trick is old. An ancient king might pay his debts in coins, then declare those coins are now worth half as much in tax payments, doubling what he effectively took in. Control the money and you control the game. There's a dark, consistent thread. Those who challenged money's controllers often met grim ends. In Rome's Republic, laws against high interest, usury, were proposed by reformers, and more than one reformer was assassinated. Julius Caesar, who introduced debt reforms and a new coinage to stabilize the economy, was also famously assassinated. Whether directly or indirectly, threats to entrenched financial interests have a way of being removed from the equation. Even Jesus, according to the Bible, overturned the tables of the money changers in Jerusalem's temple in the only recorded act of violence in his ministry. The critique of money's corrupting influence was a theme then as it is now. And in that story, what happened right after? Jesus was crucified. Coincidence or not, the narrative implies, don't mess with the money men. As we moved into the late Middle Ages and modern era, money's power didn't diminish. It simply changed, form and grew even more abstract. By the 17th century, carrying chests of coins around was impractical for big merchants and kings. Enter the paper money revolution and the rise of banking. It started with a piece of paper more valuable than gold, the banknote. In medieval China, the concept of paper money appeared by the 13th century. Marco Polo was astonished to find the emperor could make paper into money by decree. In Europe, paper notes caught on by the 1600s. How? Goldsmiths in London and Amsterdam had secure vaults and would store wealthy clients' gold, issuing receipts. Soon people realized trading these paper receipts was easier than handling coins. The goldsmiths noticed something sly. Hardly anyone came to redeem all their gold at once. So these early bankers started lending out more receipts than the gold they had on hand, effectively creating new money out of thin air and charging interest on it. It was a profitable alchemy. By the time people discovered that the receipts, banknotes, in circulation far exceeded the gold reserves, banking had become an accepted institution. Governments themselves got into the act. The Bank of England was founded in 1694 in part to finance war debts, issuing notes in return for government bonds. The age of fiat money, currency not backed by physical commodities, was truly dawning in the West. One pivotal and almost cloak and dagger moment was the creation of the US Federal Reserve. In 1910, a secret gathering of bankers and politicians met on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia to draft a plan for a US central bank. This meeting was so secretive that the participants, among them prominent financiers like Paul Warburg and Senator Nelson Aldrich, didn't admit it happened until decades later. They even disguised themselves as duck hunters to slip away to the island. The plan they crafted laid the foundation for the Federal Reserve System, established in 1913. It sounds like a conspiracy novel. Elite bankers plotting the monetary future in a private club by a swampy southern marsh. But it's documented history. Even the Fed's own historical archive describes that Jekyll Island meeting and its secrecy. Why the secrecy? Because monetary reform was controversial, and many feared a central bank would concentrate too much power. They were not wrong about the power part. Fast forward to the 20th century. By mid-century, world currencies were ostensibly backed by gold. The Bretton Woods system, after Wood II, pegged currencies to the US dollar and the dollar to gold. But in 1971, facing a financial crunch, President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, ending the convertibility of dollars to gold. Suddenly, all major currencies became free-floating fiat money, backed by nothing except government decree and public trust. Nixon's announcement, made in a televised address, effectively said, "From now on, money is worth whatever we collectively agree it's worth." This was a watershed moment. As one commentator put it, it made official the classic goldsmith's fraud, creating limitless paper or electronic money unmoored from finite reserves. Since then, the world's money has been pure abstraction. Consider this: today the vast majority of money isn't physical at all. Over 90% of the world's currency supply exists only as entries in computer databases, not as coins or banknotes. Your bank balance is not a stack of cash in a vault with your name on it, it's bits on a server. We have truly stepped into the era of virtual money. That might sound futuristic, but in a sense it's a return to money's roots, back to being a ledger of information. The difference is scale and speed. Now trillions of dollars can move at the click of a mouse, and entire economies can rise or crash due to electronic trades happening in microseconds on stock exchanges around the globe. This abstraction has huge implications for control. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank, can create money with a few keystrokes, influencing interest rates and liquidity. During crises, like the 2008 financial meltdown or the 2020 pandemic, central banks injected trillions of dollars of new money to stabilize markets, basically conjuring currency to purchase assets and calm investors. It's powerful magic. But it also reminds us how faith-based this system is. If people ever lose faith in a currency, say due to hyperinflation or political breakdown, the whole edifice collapses. History gives chilling examples. 1920s, Germany's hyperinflation saw the mark's value implode so fast that people papered their walls with banknotes because it was cheaper than wallpaper. In 1923, an American dollar was worth 1 trillion German marks, and a wheelbarrow full of bills couldn't buy a loaf of bread. Shocking photos show German children stacking bricks of cash as toys, and women burning bundles of money in stoves because it was less expensive than firewood. When money's illusion of value dies, it literally becomes trash. These examples are extreme but instructive. The control money exerts depends entirely on our continuing belief in it. The moment that mass trust breaks, money controls nothing and no one. It becomes as worthless as scraps of paper. So far, we've seen money as an external system, coins, banks, governments. But money's control runs even deeper into our own minds and behavior. Have you ever noticed how money can change people? Even the thought of money can subtly alter our actions. Psychologists have found that simply priming people with money, like showing images of cash or having them unscramble money-related words, tends to make them more self-focused and less inclined to help others. In one series of experiments, people reminded of money were less likely to lend a hand to a stranger in need, preferring to work alone and pursue personal goals. Money, even as an idea, triggers a mentality of individualism and calculative thinking. What's in it for me? It's as if the concept of money flips a switch, putting us into a market mindset. We become a little colder, a little more driven, and perhaps more anxious. And what of our daily life choices? Think of how many life decisions revolve around money, what career we choose, where we live, when or whether we retire. Money pressures constrain marriages. Financial disagreements are famously a top predictor of divorce, and even affect health. Stress over money can literally make us sick. From childhood, we're often taught to equate success with financial wealth. Society dangles money as the carrot for nearly everything: achievement, security, status. In that way, money doesn't just reflect value, it creates values in our minds. We might pursue a job we dislike because it pays well, implicitly valuing money over personal passion or free time. We measure our years in salary increases and net worth, like a scoreboard of our life's worth. There's a paradox here. Money is imaginary, but the suffering or joy it can cause us is very real. Money can inspire great things: investment, entrepreneurship, generosity, but it can also drive unethical behavior. Everyone has a price, the cynical saying goes. Would you lie for $1 million? Steal for $1 billion? Some do. We've built a civilization so dependent on money that opting out is nearly impossible. To live, you generally need income to pay for food, shelter, and the basics. In that sense, money is like the oxygen of modern society, invisible but absolutely essential, and thus a means of control. Employers control employees via wages. Banks control borrowers via loans and interest. Advertisers manipulate consumers by tapping into our monetary desires. Governments levy fines to punish and use monetary policy to nudge the economy. We are all enmeshed in the matrix of money. Yet, recall that money is also a unifying fiction. Harari calls it the most universal system of mutual trust ever devised. It allows millions of strangers to cooperate peacefully. I can walk into a cafe in a foreign country and exchange a few coins or swipe a card, and out comes a coffee served with a smile. No kinship or clan needed, just money. In that light, money is almost like a secular religion, a shared belief system. It doesn't care who you are, as long as you hold the currency in common. That openness is perhaps money's greatest upside. It can bridge cultural gaps and coordinate human activity on a vast scale. But here's the twist. We trust money, but often we don't trust each other. In a way, money replaces interpersonal trust. Instead of trusting the baker to give me bread out of kindness, I trust that my $5 bill will compel his cooperation. That can erode social bonds. Transactions take the place of relationships. Historically, this facilitated things like the slave trade. You didn't need to know or hate a person to enslave them. If the money price was right, humans were bought and sold like objects. Money encourages us to view the world through a prism of cost and benefit, gain and loss. So, is money the root of all evil or the root of all cooperation? It's both in different circumstances. It has no moral compass of its own. Money will fund a charity hospital, and money will fund organized crime. It's valueless outside of the value we assign in each context. We've traveled from ancient temples where farmers' grain deposits gave birth to writing, through empires where coins forged and felled kingdoms, to our modern world of high finance and digital ledgers. So, what have we learned about money, and how it controls us? Money is not coins or paper or numbers on a screen. Money is a story, a shared hallucination. Its power comes from collective belief. With that belief, money can raise armies, topple governments, save lives, or ruin them. Without that belief, a $100 bill is just a scrap of fancy linen, and a gold coin is just a metal disc. The true power of money is in us, in our trust, our desires, our fears. We have, in effect, outsourced a huge part of our social order to this imagined entity called money. And in doing so, we often find ourselves being ordered around by it. Think of a man who spends decades climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing health and relationships to provide for the family, only to realize he barely knows his kids. Or a young woman in a developing country, lured into a factory job by the promise of wages to send home, finding herself in harsh conditions, essentially controlled by the need to earn those precious notes. Think of entire nations where monetary policy dictates whether people prosper or go hungry. A slight uptick in interest rates can mean millions lose jobs or homes. In these ways, the money system behaves like a puppeteer, pulling the strings of human behavior at every level. Yet here's an empowering thought. If money is a story, we are the storytellers. The moment we question the script, we start to loosen money's grip. Throughout history, whenever the monetary game became too unjust, people found ways to change their rules. Be it debt jubilees in ancient times, periodically forgiving debts to prevent societal collapse, or more recently, experiments with alternative currencies and local exchange systems to reclaim autonomy. Cryptocurrency enthusiasts today, for example, seek to decentralize money and take power away from central banks, essentially trying to rewrite the money story with blockchain technology. Whether they'll succeed is an open question, but the very attempt shows our eternal urge to take back control. So, does money control us? Only as much as we allow it to. The tragedy and hope of money lies in the same fact. It has no reality besides our faith. That means it can vanish in an instant, causing chaos, but it also means, in theory, we could reinvent it if enough of us chose to. Money is master and servant, mirror and mirage. We started with a bold question, and I'll end with it. Do you control your money, or does money control you? The answer isn't static. It's a struggle, a balance that each person and society must navigate. By understanding the history of money, its whimsical beginnings, its harnessing by power, its psychological pull, we become a little more conscious of the strings attached to our lives. We might not cut those strings overnight, but at least we can see them. In a very real sense, money controls us by controlling what we believe. But if you remember that it's all made up, you gain power over the narrative. You can decide what role money plays in your story, beyond mere survival. You might still need to earn it and spend it. We can't escape that easily. But you can choose not to worship it, not to let it define your worth or your dreams. The history of money is still being written every day with each transaction and each ledger entry. And so is the history of how it controls us, or how we might regain control. In the end, money is meaningless on its own. We are the ones who animate it with meaning. That realization is both terrifying and liberating. It means the most powerful economic force is, and always has been, us. Thank you for watching, and may you never look at the cash in your wallet or the numbers in your account quite the same way again.